Hi guys, welcome back. So for this week's assignment, I decided that I was going to do the Yolani Palace tour. I was really excited because it was my first time and it was such a learning experience for me, and I just want to say that it was such an amazing moment for me to be able to witness and even stand on the same grounds that the former kings and queens of the Hawaiian Islands used to stand on, to walk on the stairs and that was made out of the koa wood and to just touch it and be around it. It was just such a surreal moment for me, because I never thought of just going on my free time or just for fun to see what was in the palace. So I'm so happy that I went. And so with that being said, the first room that resonated with me was the room of the king, that and we got to see up close like the bed, what his bed would look like. The tour guide actually said that it wasn't the exact bed, but they just had reproduced a duplicate, and what they saw through like pictures and paintings what the room would look like, and they set it up accordingly. And so it was a pretty cool time to like see the bed and just how the room was set up in that time frame, because it's definitely way different than it is set up today in like a modern room and whatnot. The second room that I loved was the music room. And so the music room was actually another name for it. They said that it was a golden room. They had like yellow light curtains, and it was just basically a room for downtime for the kings and queens and their family, just to get together. And it was nice to see that music has always been such a great part of the culture and the traditions of the Hawaiian people. Actually, the dining room was the first room that we had went in that I saw a cultural influence from the Europeans. I saw the way that the dining tables were set up, and it's a lot like the way that if I remember correctly, the way the kings and queens of Great Britain or like the British would set up their tables. And even there were like in the dining room, I was surprised to learn that there were a lot of European faces in the room, like European portraits along with the kings and queens. And so the tour guide actually said that not all of the portraits that were pictured in the room had made it to the Hawaiian Islands. So for example, it's like Napoleon. He never had made it to the Hawaiian Islands, but it was just gifted, to the king, as to show like their diplomatic relationship with foreign countries. So I found that pretty cool. The other room that I had loved the most, which was actually the most politically conflicting room for me, because it was such a pivotal time in history for the Hawaiian Islands, and that was the imprisonment room, which Queen Liliuokalani had been held hostage at. And we got to see the quilt that she had worked on while she was captivated against her will. And it was definitely one of the more dull moments in the tour, only because the history behind it is so sad, and it affects so many generations. Even to this day, it affects the fact that a lot of Hawaiians cannot speak Hawaiian and the language, because the language was taken away from their people, taken away from their queen, and it was basically snatched out of their culture and their traditions. And so that room was really important for me politically, because it marks the overthrow of the Hawaiian Islands by the Americans. And for me, I just couldn't imagine what it was like having to lead your people and to surrender your entire nation in the hands of Americans, just because you didn't want any bloodshed. And I understand, as a woman, I would probably have led the same way, with given that I didn't have enough military power at the time, and it just probably would not have been worth the lives lost to fight, knowing that the Americans probably would have won anyway, given all their ammunitions and commodities and whatnot. And so it was definitely a sad part of the tour. And so I was happy that we ended it on a happier note in the ballroom, which was actually one of my very favorite rooms. The colors just resonated with me and stood out with me the most, you know, red and yellow. I didn't know that those are such royal colors, you know, red and yellow. And we got to see the thrones. For me, what resonated with me the most in that room was the thrones of the kings and queens and the door that they would walk in, and it was their ballroom, you know. It's where they held their guests and had their band, the Hawaiian band, and they just would dance from night all throughout the morning. And it was just a happy room, and you could just feel it in the atmosphere and its aura itself, you know. And so I was really happy to have ended the tour on that room after coming from the imprisonment room that Queen Liliuokalani had been held hostage. So the ballroom was really cool to see, like even like the mirrors and like the thrones and like the their crowns. Their crowns were actually one of the coolest parts of the room. I was like, oh my goodness, like that's what their crowns look like, you know. I was just fangirling the whole time, to be honest. And so at the latter end of the tour, we got to go down and see to the basement level of the palace, and we got to see the history of the restoration of the Iolani Palace, and we got to see the jewelries that the queens used to wear, and like all the luxurious diamonds that they used to have on their hair. Like there was this really cool butterfly that was made out of like 150 diamonds that I was surprised to learn. I was like, wow, that's a lot of diamonds. It would cost a lot today. And so it was just an honor to be able to learn in person and to see all those artifacts in person, and to even be able to touch the wood or just the doors of the palace. You know, anybody living in that era would have been honored to have even walked through the doors of the Iolani Palace. And so that was my learning experience, and some of the cultural influences that I had noted, and the influences from Europe that I had seen in the palace itself, from like the furnitures and like the swords and whatnot, like the portraits of other foreign leaders from other countries. And so yeah, that was about it, and that's all that had resonated with me the most. And it was such, like I said, it was such an honor to even be standing on the same grounds as the former kings and queens of the Hawaiian Islands.